everyone, welcome to Bickering Book Reviews. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Becky.
And today we're talking about Heroine by Mindy McGinnis. So this is about Mickey, a star softball catcher who gets in a car accident with her best friend and fellow teammate pitcher, who is the star pitcher. And because of this car accident, Mickey's hip goes out of place. Anyway, to reattach it, they insert some screws. So because of this kind of very serious surgery, Mickey's put on OxyContin, right? It's OxyContin.
It was OxyContin, yeah.
I always get Oxy's confused. Anyway, she was put on an opioid drug. And she kind of starts taking this to originally deal with the pain, but then it becomes more than just the pain and the need to get better because she's the star catcher and they have an undefeated team and she needs to get back out there. So she's kind of using the drugs to push her healing process along, and then it kind of morphs further into kind of an addiction, and then eventually she goes full out and gets into the real heavy kind of heroin drug usage, just as the natural progression that it typically is in kind of this opioid addiction. So along the way, it's just really kind of how she falls into this and the reactions of her friends and family around her, and ultimately kind of her identity as it relates to the addiction. Because, at first she was like, I will never be an addict. I'm just using this to feel better. And everybody keeps telling her, how fast she's getting better. And that's awesome.
Right.
But it was really interesting to kind of see her attitude change toward the drugs.
Right. I feel like all the medical parts, as a person who's gone through something similar, just with my leg and ankle not my hip, I feel like one of the adults should have been like, she's on all these drugs, and every time you go to the doctor, they do things like test your blood pressure and stuff. Shouldn't somebody have noticed something?
Does it change blood pressure and stuff
I thought
like
it lowered it.
I don't know. Well, see, and I think that was kind of maybe why our reactions to this book were very different, because I really don't know a lot about kind of the drug world, because it really kind of unflinchingly looks at drug usage, and I have never seen it that clearly before. And I've read things like Tweak, but I feel like this really kind of pulls out all the extra stuff and says, no, this is how you do it. This is how you actually do the drug. So that's going to be interesting to see readers and recovering addicts and stuff, how they react to it. And
I should probably my older sister's ex-best friend is a heroin addict.
Yeah, and I don't have that background with it.
So there's that too, but I will say, so everything when she's talking about feeling the screws and stuff, that was very realistic, because when I have a plate and pins and all sorts of stuff because I basically crushed my ankle and leg. And she's talking about how she can actually feel them, and you can, and it's very odd, and I think that it would be something that you would notice. But I think that it is, in ways, a very realistic portrayal of how you can go down the slippery slope, and I think it is a way to present these ideas to teens. And it takes place in rural Ohio, and that is a major epidemic. Yeah. I think it was very interesting, I did not know this, where they talk about how it's cheaper to do heroin than it is to do Oxy.
Which kind of makes sense.
It does make sense, and but it is a little safer to do Oxy than heroin because you're injecting things.
But the book gets into that.
Right. I just never felt like it was emotionally done in any way, shape, or form. I felt like it was all just kind of very glossy on the top. You kind of said a flippant attitude about everything. And so, yeah, the book is heartbreaking, but the opioid epidemic is heartbreaking. I don't know if I care about Mickey's story as much as I care about this thing that's ravaging Ohio.
It's more like the book kind of focuses on the mindset of the addiction and the kind of the highs that come with it. But it just doesn't feel like the research and the development is put into kind of how she gets there and how she potentially may kind of move beyond it.
Right. I feel like
I just don't necessarily know. I think the focus is just too much on the high.
Which, for an addict, that is the high.
But I think there's more to it. There's more to her story than just the high. You know what I mean? It was very flippant in the same way that it was talking about the high.
I just never emotionally felt oh, this is a real person going through this. like if you read a memoir of an addict or if you see an interview with somebody who used to be an addict, it's a very different emotion. And I just kind of feel like, I hope this isn't giving it away, but it does kind of follow Mickey into a recovery. And I was telling Sarah, my father gave up smoking 40 years ago, and he was just smoking cigarettes. And I said something in passing to him, something about a cigarette, and he's like, I still every day want a cigarette. So I feel like there are things at the end of this book that just felt like she recovered very, very quickly. And I'm like, and there is the mental aspect, and they do talk about, your brain stops making dopamine, and so you can't be happy and all that stuff. But I feel like it was just kind of glossed over.
Well, and I think it kind of also feeds into this, like, discrimination or hierarchy of addicts. Like, the addicts who come from kind of the Vietnam War, the older people, or certain people, their addiction is kind of looked down upon, but these weekend kind of users, these, the old lady who's selling the drugs and that kind of thing, they're not as bad as the other addicts. But really, but
I kind of feel like she almost blurred that line, though, because you have the wealthy teens who are trying to score who get it from the Vietnam vet. But they kind of, while they're separate, they're kind of also they're both at the truck stop with drugs. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it.
I don't either. And I don't know,
I was super excited for this book.
If this were a book about mental illness, I definitely think I would consider this a trigger. I would also, so in drug addiction, to me, I would think that it's a trigger, but without really kind of having that personal background with it, I don't necessarily know if I could label it as a trigger, but because it sounds like living is a trigger.
From the people I've interacted with, from what they have said to me, I've never been an addict, so I don't know, but from what I've been told, yes, life is just a trigger.
I found it fascinating. I found it, it's definitely connecting teens to the subject matter that they don't really typically see on our shelves. And I think it's important to talk about it because it is an easy, slippery slope to get there.
And it is, like I said, I feel like it's a very important story and it's an important book, but it felt sterile to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can agree. I think more research needed to be done. But
so we should rate it.
It's no female-less species.
We should rate it.
Our rating scale goes from 5 unicorns down to 2 unicorns. If we didn't like it, it's a horse and doesn't get a horn. Where are you?
Before I say that, there was one thing I did wonder about. There was a mention of a character, and I can't remember, it was Heather something. And the name sounded super familiar, and I was like, was that a character from Female to Species? It was like somebody who she either had bought from or somebody who had overdosed, and it was like a friend of something. So if anybody... If anybody else reads this book and notices that, let me know. So my rating, though, for this book, Heroine, I'm at a 3. Like I said, I think it's an important story, but it never grabbed me. It took me a long time to read it, and it didn't feel emotional.
I don't know. I'm at a 4. I could definitely see myself recommending it to people. I thought it moved quickly. I thought it definitely brought up subjects that I haven't seen before in a way that was easy to understand and connect to. So I'm going to be a 4.
And that is where we are on Heroine by Mindy McGinnis.
All right, see you later.
Bye.